Welcome to another Explainer. Today, we're embarking on a totally mind-shifting journey into the science and history of human character. For thousands of years, across literally every major civilization, we've all asked one fundamental question. What makes a human being truly excellent? Like, is being a good person just a set of arbitrary rules we kind of made up? Or is it something baked into reality itself, just waiting to be found? Well, get ready, because we are going to look at the evidence.
You know, John Lennon famously sang, "Life is what happens to you while you're busy making other plans." And it's so true, right? We spend a massive amount of time obsessing over planning our lives, mapping out every career move, every single weekend, every milestone. But actually, it's our underlying character, those deeply ingrained dispositions, that dictates how we handle what happens when those plans inevitably fall apart. Character is the foundation beneath the plans.
So here is our roadmap for this explainer. 1. Discovered, not invented. 2. The anatomy of a virtue. 3. A 4,000-year detective story. 4. The great fragmentation. 5. Measuring human excellence. And 6. Virtue engineering. By the end of this, we're going to reconstruct the ultimate blueprint for human flourishing.
Section 1. Discovered, not invented.
Okay, let's dive right into this. Our first major paradigm shift is the concept that virtue is an objective reality, not just some made-up rule. See, there's a fundamental difference between what we invent and what we discover. We invent things like social fashions, etiquette, the rules of a board game. Those change depending on where you are. But we discover gravity, the chemical elements, or the biological nature of a healthy apple. I mean, a child doesn't invent apples when they point at one for the first time. In that exact same way, humanity didn't invent courage or justice or temperance. We just eventually gave a name to a recurring pattern of excellence that already existed in human nature.
Which brings me to a question I really want to challenge you with. Did we invent courage, or did we just name it? Think about it. Did bravery exist in mothers protecting their kids from danger way before the actual word courage was ever spoken? Of course it did. The reality of the virtue came first. The vocabulary came later. We are discovering reality here, not manufacturing it.
Moving to Section 2, the anatomy of a virtue.
So, how do we actually define what we're looking at? What are the specific nuts and bolts that make up a virtue? Here is our working definition, built from both classical and modern sources. A virtue is a stable disposition that perfects human powers, reliably orders action toward genuine goods through reasoned choice, and contributes to flourishing. Now, if that sounds a bit academic, just think of a virtue like the unseen roots of a tree. The fruit is what everyone sees, the good actions, the kind words. But the roots? The roots are that stable disposition, making that fruit naturally possible over and over again through every single season. It really helps to map the boundaries of what a virtue actually is by comparing it to what it isn't. Take being a great soccer player or a skilled surgeon. That's a skill, it's task competence. A brilliant surgeon can still be a completely selfish person off the clock, right? Being naturally extroverted, well, that's just a personality trait. Feeling angry is a spontaneous emotion. None of those automatically make you a good person. Virtue, on the other hand, directs your entire life in the right direction. It's about choosing justice, perfecting your moral character rather than just your technical abilities.
Section 3, a 4,000-year detective story.
Let's see how all this builds historically. We're shifting from the anatomy of character to the history of how we actually figured it out. And I want you to reframe how you view our ancestors. They weren't just a bunch of moral lecturers wagging their fingers at us. They were early detectives. They were gathering clues about what makes human beings thrive. This timeline traces a massive 4,000-year investigation. We start around 2400 BC with Egyptian wisdom literature praising honesty and restraint. Then we move to the Greek philosophy of Plato and Aristotle around 340 BC, mapping out human flourishing. That culminates in the massive medieval synthesis by Thomas Aquinas in 1274 AD, finally arriving at modern psychology today. It shows how observations of character built up cumulatively over millennia.
It is exactly like finding pieces to a giant jigsaw puzzle without having the picture on the box. Philosophers, theologians, and modern scientists haven't been creating brand new virtues every century, not at all. They've been discovering how the exact same pieces, things like honesty, temperance, and courage, actually fit together to reveal the whole picture of human excellence.
Section 4, the great fragmentation. But, as you know, every good detective story has a complication. We had this unified picture of the puzzle, but then something happened in the modern era. The study of the single puzzle completely split into isolated academic silos. Philosophy took moral reasoning. Psychology grabbed personality traits, neuroscience claimed brain mechanisms, education focused on socialization, and leadership studied institutional trust. Imagine a family taking apart a bicycle. Dad takes the wheels, mom takes the chain, the kids grab the handlebars. Each discipline grabbed one piece and essentially claimed it was the entire bicycle. Everyone is right about their specific part, but you cannot ride a pile of parts. We've got to put the bike back together.
Section 5. Measuring Human Excellence.
Let's look at how this builds into modern measurement, because you might be wondering, how is empirical science actually proving what ancient philosophers observed so long ago? Well, the number 800 is key here. We literally have 800 years of accumulated, documented evidence from civic institutions, schools, guilds, and monasteries, and they all show a consistent pattern. Character determines outcomes. It's not just some nice poetic idea. It is a historically observable fact.
And when we apply modern scientific tools, the data is just staggering. I mean, look at the scope here. Studies on the Big Five personality traits involving over 400,000 participants show that stable dispositions predict life success way beyond just raw intelligence. Meta-analyses of 213 school programs with 270,000 kids absolutely prove that deliberate instruction actively improves character and academic outcomes. And brain imaging, fMRI, it reveals the actual neural networks behind empathy and self-control. It shows they are tangible biological realities. This establishes unshakable scientific credibility. Virtue isn't just a cultural preference, it's a measurable, hugely impactful driver of human life.
So, how do we actually measure virtue today? Because obviously you can't just put courage on a laboratory scale, right? Instead, scientists use a combination of steps. They create operational definitions, they track behavioral measures, they use psychometric questionnaires, and they map the brain with neuroscience. It's kind of like a teacher assessing a student's reading ability. They look at multiple intersecting clues like reading out loud, answering questions, seeing progress over time, rather than just hoping to find a glowing reading meter inside their brain. The convergence of all these different methods gives us a highly reliable picture.
Section 6. Virtue Engineering.
Okay, this is the climax of our explainer. This is the unifying solution to our fragmentation problem. Virtue engineering is the master blueprint. It brings together timeless wisdom and modern science to deliberately cultivate human excellence. It acts as the grand unifier. It pulls philosophy, theology, and empirical science back together so we can finally see the whole bicycle again. We're taking all those parts out of their academic silos and we're putting them to work.
The absolutely crucial point here is that it's not about inventing a new morality. We really don't need a brand new set of rules to live by. It is entirely about systematically applying what humanity has already learned across 4,000 years of intense discovery and observation to our families, our schools, our organizations, and of course, our own personal lives. Which brings us to our final thought. We now have the blueprint for human excellence. We have the data, the history, and the hard science that completely proves character can be deliberately cultivated. So the question is, what kind of person will you engineer? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. I really hope this leaves you inspired to look at your own character not as some fixed trait, but as a masterpiece just waiting to be cultivated. Keep learning, stay focused, and I'll catch you next time.